Okay, here we go.
Hi everybody, we're back again. I'm Colin McGough, the Communications Director, and with me is Shelly Gibson, the Team Challenge Coordinator. And she is here to show us all around some elements of the new challenge course that just went up last year.
Yes, last August. So Chewonki decided to put in and really utilize some space on the neck. So we've got 3 pods out here of low elements and then some high elements that we'll show you. Within the challenge course curriculum, before groups even come out onto the course, whether it's with OC, our elementary school, Maine Coast semester, our summer camp program, they'll do a series of activities on Maine campus. So group challenges, things to sort of get them in the mindset of working together. And then they'll make their way out over a day or a series of days to some of these low elements that we see around here. So behind us is what's called the team triangle. And the goal, there are lots of different ways to modify this based on what the group needs. So if, for example, we did it with our elementary school students around astronomy, so each tree was representative of something different in the solar system. They had to answer sort of trivia about different places in the solar system as they traversed across the trees, and then you can use some assistance in the middle. So that's just an example. Each of the 3 pods has a cabled element, a lifting element, and a platform element. So those are kind of around in here.
So just so we can tell people who aren't familiar with the idea of a challenge course, what is a challenge course in a general sense?
Yeah. So we really, I think Chewonki really wanted to be intentional about using a challenge course for an educational purpose. So nowadays we've got a lot of adventure parks and zip line programs and things like that, which are really valuable and fun from an entertainment standpoint. And Chewonki wanted to have something that was going to supplement our programs here and be used in a way that was very purposeful and connected to the curriculum, whether that's sort of community-based curriculum or actually really specific subject-based material. So I think that differentiates us from an average kind of like pay-to-play program that you would see, and it's progress that happens over time and multiple opportunities to reapproach an element from not just physically from a different space, but also maybe with a different goal in mind, and doing so over months or years, depending on the program.
So you would have a group of either students or campers or visitors come out, and they would go through a process of learning how to work on the course element, and it's to help them develop teamwork and leadership and problem solving? Yeah,
I mean, I think those are the easiest, typically the go-to pieces, and we really try to do it based on what that group needs.
Yeah.
So it might be a cabin group that's really struggling over their 3-week session to really gel together. It could also be something more specific with our Maine Coast semester, where doing one of these activities is kind of a conduit to discuss transitions back home. And what gets you from tree to tree, and what's the metaphor in the transition here that can be useful back in your community.
So you see group problem solving is like really motivates people to work out their relationships.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just having those conversations person to person, and being willing to do this in a low risk environment and having hard discussions with people that you're building that trust with can be really valuable.
Well, let's look at this thing, because this is really standing out in the background here. What's this element called?
So this is called the challenge wall. Okay. People typically think this is a climbing wall where you would get harnessed in. The interesting thing about challenge walls, and actually seemingly sometimes are more difficult, is because you are really just utilizing your group to lift you up and over the wall. And so there's 2 sides. So this side's obviously the incline, and then we've got the side on over there, which is straight up. Yeah. You can't use the sides at all. This is obviously a very well spotted and highly managed activity, and this would happen later in a sequence of activities. This would not be something you would probably want to do with your group right away, especially with younger students. They physically just wouldn't be able to get up and over.
They're pushing each other up.
Yeah, so lifting, and then once you have people at the top, they're also helping from above as well.
So with this one, is there a specific way they have to do it, or you leave it to them to come up with a method?
Yeah, I often leave it up to them to come up with, I give the basic safety of how to lift, but it's up to them to determine how they're going to do that, knowing that the first person has everybody, but there's no one up top, and then the last person technically doesn't have any. We will have spotters down here, but they don't lift anyone from the bottom.
Very cool. Could we look at a couple other ones?
Yeah, do you want to head out to our Voyager Court? Let's go this way.
Let's go that way. So how many elements are scattered through the woods here?
So we have 17 elements total. 17 elements total, low and high.
Could you tell me what a low element versus a high element
Yeah,
is?
so a low element's anything from 6 to 12 inches off the ground. Technically the challenge wall is considered a low element. A high element is anything where you have a helmet and a harness and you're in some kind of a belay safety system.
And what's a belay?
So the belay system is what the facilitator or the educator on the ground is doing and sort of through a device to keep you safe.
Okay.
And so that's a pretty standard system and is used in traditional rock climbing and then also across challenge courses as well. Yeah.
So you must have some people trained in very specific climbing safety and...
Yes, absolutely. So only using folks that have gone through a series of trainings and checkoffs in order to belay safely.
Yep.
So we've got, you can't really see it, but we've got another pod down here. And actually that was really thoughtful too, with the inception of the course, was to use it in a way where it's relatively hidden. So that not just because you don't want to create an attractive nuisance, but also to really like still feel the natural space of what we have at Chewonki. We have just off to the right, which you can see relatively well from the trail, is called the Perch. It's an outdoor processing classroom. Maine Coast semester used that a ton for lessons, and it had exams up in the Perch. Our elementary school students have been up with binoculars doing some bird watching up there. OC will do their end of the day debrief. Yeah, you want to go down there? Great, let's look at it.
Sure.
These are kind of new within the industry. Our designer and builder, High Five, based out of Brattleboro, Vermont, is really innovative in the things that they build and design. We've been fortunate to kind of get some of those here before they've really become a big thing. So there's no equipment needed. There's very specific safety guidelines posted that the group would go over before they go up and in. But this is sort of a 12 person maximum. You get in and you can sit down and have lunch. You can have a lesson, discussion. The elementary school also did a night hike out here and then just sat up there in the dark.
So it's really interesting. I see that nothing is attached to the trees firmly. It's using cabling and harnesses, so the trees can still move?
The trees can still move. There is shift, although they are directly, there's what's called an eye bolt, which is drilled into the tree, and then the rest of the gear is attached to that. So it is, the trees are physically holding it up. You can see the same, but it has a nice, still has some give to it, so the trees can move, and then also it can sway a little bit as participants are inside.
That's great.
Yeah.
That seems like a really peaceful place to take a little break.
Yeah, it's a really exciting resource, and this is something that's used all across Chewonki, so that's really exciting as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, great. So we'll continue on.
Shelly, how did you get into doing challenge coursework and high ropes and low ropes?
Yeah, so it was kind of by accident. I did a challenge course program at summer camp when I was a kid and really loved it and thought it was really fun, and I was the kid that went back every year and was like, I know how to do everything, and so they immediately silenced me and said, you can't talk anymore. So now I do that with participants. Yeah, and I just ended up spending time after college at an outdoor learning center, kind of like Chewonki, and I realized, I can do this for a living and enjoy it and really get great satisfaction about what I'm doing and also being outside. So this is an interesting, we should just point out really quickly.
Sure.
So Sunrise Cabin is where Clarence Allen originally spent some of his days.
This was it, just this little cabin.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So way before all these trees were in here, you could actually see the sunrise. So from the deck, it's now used.
Oh right, this was farmland back then.
Yes.
So it's cleared.
Yeah. So now it's used for our challenge course equipment, but staff have lived in here over the years. It's a beloved place as part of Chewonki, so it's just an exciting landmark.
Thank you, Clarence.
Yeah, there used to be a wood stove in there, and it was a very peaceful place. So another pod of low elements down the hill in what we call the pineapple forest, which used to be an apple orchard. Now pines have come through, so we've got pineapple. This is an example of another high element. It's called the vertical playpen. This is designed for 2 climbers and then a team of folks on the ground to help support them, not just physically, but also emotionally. Again,
I don't know if you can see how high that is, but that's really amazing.
That's a good vantage.
Do the climbers go all the way to the top of this one?
It depends. So we are firm believers in challenge zones and putting people into sort of that learning space, coming out of what's easy and comfortable into a space of learning, avoiding the really scary, what we call the yo-yo panico zone. So we really try to help folks find that, and the team is very supportive of letting them come down when they're ready. And this one's nice because you have a partner, so your partner's actually physically helping you climb up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that must be interesting, trying to help each person gauge what's exciting risk versus scary risk versus yikes.
Yes, and so we talk about that with all of our groups, an opportunity for them to think about how what's comfortable for them is not so comfortable. Swimming in the ocean, for me, is like sometimes in my challenge zone because I have an irrational fear of sharks. Other folks are really comfortable and would get in a shark tank.
I actually have good news for you. Last year, more people were killed by cows than by sharks.
I know, I watched.
Google that.
I know, and I know that it's an irrational fear. Let me just say that for the record.
I'm with you.
So we talk a lot about that with our groups in terms of being supportive of each other, knowing that heights aren't a big deal for me, but for lots of people, heights are really, really realistic and validated fear.
So how does that work when you're facilitating a group and you sort of get people to the point where they feel comfortable saying to the rest of the group, yeah, like, I'm here with the team and I want to do this part, but I really don't know about doing the top part. That sounds like a really scary emotional thing.
Yeah, so I'll actually do an activity where I'll give a series of examples and kind of create those zones on the ground, and you step forward based on how comfortable you are and back based on how uncomfortable you are.
Yeah.
And those can be like giving a speech. Those can be going to a birthday party where you don't know anybody and using like realistic examples and then adding climbing into it. So that's a way to just sort of dress those before you get to the space.
Because everybody has something.
So the high five guys are hiding. This is their quick cameo. So these are folks that help. You guys are on Facebook Live. So these guys are great. They are part of a larger organization that helped sort of design, build, and are now here inspecting to make sure that everything is safe. This is Lucas, and Dave's hiding in the car. I told them they wouldn't have to say anything. And that's okay, but they're doing some work on our Voyager course. But this is actually good. We should get closer because you can see. Say hi, Dave.
Wow. So this is a big piece.
Yeah. So the Voyager course is really it's a very specific element. It seems to look at it seems more like something you would see from the side of the road at sort of a more kind of adventure park type thing. But we've actually really tried to use it thoughtfully with our participants in the way that it offers those challenge zones we were talking about.
Yeah.
There's multiple points of entry where the tarps are right now, so you can't necessarily see the actual...
Well, let's maybe walk around a little bit.
Great.
I see there's a climbing wall right here.
Yeah, so this is a rock ramp, so students can choose to enter from here. They can either go up that way or up what we call the shoelaces. This activity is also interesting because it requires participation from the ground. So ropes will be hanging from a series of elements so that their partners, we have them work in partners, their partner actually has to go and get a team of people together to help stabilize the ropes so that they can traverse safely and effectively. This is also great because you can have multiple people in the air at the same time. So an opportunity for team members to be sort of experiencing something similar together.
How big a group would you have running through?
Probably 2 groups, so about 20 people, but you'd probably want to only have about 9 in the air at a time. And one of the things we did with Cape Elizabeth when they were here was that we had notebooks hanging at each tree up in the air and on the ground, and students had an opportunity to write in the notebooks based on what they were feeling. Each one had a different prompt. What are you feeling right now? Who's helping you right now? What lessons are you learning today? So things to sort of connect it more than like, we're just going to go play for fun. The fun is great too, and the individual accomplishment is hugely important.
So you're not just climbing, you're trying to find the connection between the excitement and the anxiety around doing a physical challenge and how that relates back to your personal life and your own personal growth.
Yeah, and the progression of all those activities we talked about before are really important because we have this activity, you're actually clipping yourself in through a series of commands with a Chewonki facilitator on the ground. Yep. So you need to be able to show in a safe space on the ground with your teammates that you're going to actually support them there before we would ever consider asking you to do that at height. Yeah. That's really important that they also see that they can trust us as staff and that we're also going to be looking out for each other, that you're not just going to climb and your whole group is going to walk away.
So you talked before a little bit about everybody finds sort of their own scary tolerance zone.
Yeah.
So I see there's a perch way
Yes.
up in the top of that pine tree.
Yeah.
And looking at that makes me want to throw up.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just hit my own personal risk.
Yeah, so that's our rappel tower. So that's the highest thing that we have on the challenge course.
How high is that?
I don't know exactly. My guess would be at least 65, 70 feet.
Could we go
Yeah,
under?
absolutely. Again, that's one that is very specific, so we haven't used that with the groups that we are sort of just keeping at this level, not only because it requires an additional staff member and sort of other pieces to manage, but that is sort of something we've imagined as kind of the pinnacle of the camp experience, your final year at camp, right? So you can see you, Colin, like, how tall are you? Like, so
I'm like 5'9".
5'9". So if we average that out at 6, however many of you it takes to get up there, that's kind of how I. So it's pretty tall.
Yeah, it sure is. Actually, it's worth noting that this is a magnificent tree.
Yes.
It's not.
And
everything else.
High Five is really good about that too. They're very, as I was saying, intentional about not only what they build, but the space that they use, and sort of join Chewonki in that endeavor to create the challenge course in a really sustainable way. We don't want to use and abuse the trees. We're thankful that they're here, but trying to do so in a way that's going to last over time as well.
Just looking around, I noticed that while you've done a great job of clearing the area of any hazards or impediments, there's no original trees taken down. You worked within the natural space to build this course.
Yeah, there were a few places, I think, where they had to take some things out, but they, yes, as you mentioned, spent a lot of time before they even designed the course, coming through and looking at the space that we already had for that reason. Yeah.
Can I ask you about that section up there?
Yes.
It looks like you have to swing back and forth and jump across like. So I'm a big Ninja Gladiator fan. I don't know if you've seen that show.
Yes.
Is that what you have to do up there?
No, so that's the section I was talking about. So it's hard to see now because the ropes are tied up, but that's the section where the ropes there are 4 ropes that hang to the ground, and your partner would find another 3 people to stabilize that platform so that it's a continuation. So it's called the Caterpillar Bridge. So that actually the first one swings a bit, and then the second one is probably the most stable because you have your teammates on the ground holding it. And then this one as well, it's just a little bit harder to see with the lighting, called the NV. There are ropes that come down, and the pulley can move back and forth based on the climber. But their teammates on the ground help them do that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So who's the next group coming up for you?
So it's going to be Boys Camp. So
Boys Camp.
Staff training starts next week. And so we'll get our core team of challenge course activity staff trained. And then, we'll start our Boys Camp programs in the next few weeks where we'll have them out here. And the goal is to sort of do a progression over time with Boys Camp. So they won't, your first year on the challenge course, you won't see the Voyager course. That's something that would happen over multiple years.
You work your way up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. To not just utilize the activities that we have, but also to see that progression within individual campers and then groups of campers.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great. We are just about out of time because it's time for lunch.
Yes.
And we're going to head back over to
The mosquitoes are having their lunch right now.
to the quad and check in at the desk, and then we're going to go see Bill Edgerton and all of the kitchen staff. Thank you so much for showing us around the course. There's so much more to see out here. If you're ever in the Chewonki area and there's a chance to do a tour, you should definitely check it out. There's many more elements in the woods.
And I love talking all things team coordinator. So
awesome.
Thank
Thanks very
you.
much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.